I see you found our little hiding spot in the universe. Don't get too comfortable. This is a place where you will find those with an experience that's out of this world, or possibly deep within your life. I welcome you to the Oracles with James Tyson. Lean forward and listen. We will pull you into a supernatural journey with guests from around the world, each one experiencing some of the most extraordinary phenomena this wee planet has to offer. I wish to invite you to support the program through the Oracles with JamesTyson.com Patreon link. For as little as $3 per month, you qualify for a free monthly psychic reading, a past life regression, and exclusive access to our filmed interviews. Don't lower your guard. That's just the beginning as we give back. When I have reached 2,222 members, we will be giving away monthly trips to supernatural hotspots and conferences across North America. Don't run. I can see you. With a limit of 4,500 Patreon supporters, you will want to get your passports ready, as every third month, we will include paranormal conferences and tours in Europe and Australia. I know you can hear me. Visit theoracleswithjamestyson.com and click on the Patreon link. Where are you listening? That's the Patreon button at theoracleswithjamestyson.com. Now, here are the Oracles with James Tyson.
Shut up and sit down.
Thank you, Liam, and thank you for tuning in, listener, to this very first, Volume 1 episode of the Oracles with James. It just dawned on me. It's Volume 1, Series 1. I don't know if that's more of an action comic or a DC comic thing. I don't think if you hide this in the back of the closet for 50 years, it's going to be worth anything. But you've got it. You are the premier listeners to this, my new podcast, The Oracles. I'm going to give you in the next little while, this being the first episode, I'm going to tell you what got me off on this tangent and what's coming up for you to listen to and the types of things that we do here. And it's going to be a little bit different than you're used to. It's not just a podcast. It's not just something you can listen to and turn it off and walk away from. I'm going to try to get you involved not only in picking a lot of the guests we have on here, but actually going out and interviewing them with me, which it's going to take a bit. But first of all, who am I? James Tyson, plain old James Tyson. I was a peace officer and member of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police for about 28 years up here north of the 49th parallel. No, we didn't ride horses. No, we didn't wear those fancy red uniforms everywhere. Those were kind of ceremonial, and the horse thing, as soon as they invented cars, we kind of gave those up because, dang it, even though we're in Canada, after a while, yelling at a car to stop when you're horseback, they just may not ever do that. But I did that for a while, so that was my career. That and about 17 jobs I had before that. But at the end of the day, that's what I did for a big chunk of my life. Now, going back a little bit further, ever since I was in my early teens, maybe about 10 to 13 years old, I was seeing shadow people. I'd wake up in the middle of the night. In hindsight now, I'm probably that whole 3 till 4:30 in the morning thing. And there were shadows in my room. And they were moving like a person would, from one end of the bed to the other, and got me a little nervous most of the time. That grew into something a little bit more in your face. When I was 16 years old, I was in a very bad car accident where 2 children were killed in the other car. That was a little odd. And I don't mean just odd because I was 16 when it happened and people died, but I never saw them as dead. I was in the hospital, in the front seat of the ambulance, and the hospital staff were helping the driver of the other car out of the back of the ambulance, and he was with his son. The son looked fine when I saw him. It wasn't until later my parents explained to me that the boy had actually died in the car, and I could describe him from head to toe. So I thought, well, that's odd. He must have had some pretty severe internal injuries if he was that healthy when I was seeing him. And that type of thing continued to follow me, even as a peace officer, going to car accidents where you may see a witness standing on the side of the road thinking, oh, it's not a bad accident, I've got somebody to talk to. By the time I take my seatbelt off and turn all the emergency gear on and get out, my witnesses disappeared, and then I realized when I walk up to the car, the person I saw outside the car was actually the deceased person who is now in the car. So as you can imagine, that sure gives you a lot of questions as you go through life. And those questions continued. And in 2012, not knowing really much about psychics and paranormal and things like that, I happened to be introduced to a psychic who told me I was something called an empath. Now, I'd never heard of empath before. This was late November 2012. She knew my mother's name was Lexa, L-E-X-A. The psychic only knew me as James. She had no idea that and my phone number. She didn't know my mom was dead. There's no way she could have picked that name out of a hat. She totally described her as standing over my left shoulder. Told me about 3 challenges I was going through in the mounted police and how each of them were successfully going to turn out on my behalf. Well, those were challenges that nobody else knew except me. Once you give me my mother's name and her description and those challenges, I'm going to start believing anything coming out of your mouth. But when she says that these challenges I was going through were going to come out on my behalf, there was no stress because, heck, I'm going to believe you. I cannot not believe you because of what you just told me. She then said I could read cards. And I'm just kind of, yeah, okay, well, I'm going to keep buying this, but wow. So she told me I could read oracle cards. She eventually got me in touch with her paranormal team that she was on, and I went out on a couple of investigations with them, and sure enough, it wasn't that long. I think it was the second investigation. I was having a conversation with a disembodied woman at a table and just thought, okay, you're going to need to get another skeptic because I'm done. She also confirmed that those things that I saw that I thought were, in hindsight, ghosts, really were ghosts. And I was just one of those people that was lucky or unlucky enough to see them. Now, I don't see them all the time. I don't see them walking down the street. I have friends who can do that. They literally have to turn that off. But I do at times see them when it's right after an accident, or like they're in that kind of in-between, oh crap, am I dead? Should I hang out here? What do I do? How do I get back into my body? That's kind of where I see them. Or in the case of this 6-year-old who was with his dad back in the accident when I was 16, he would have hopped into the ambulance with his dad, not knowing what to do. He's probably thinking, why am I going to stay here in the car with the fire department and all this emergency staff when I can just go with you? I'm a little scared right now, so I'm going to hang out with Dad. And that's when I saw him. So, again, there's a lot of questions that come up in my life. It's more questions when it came time to realize that I was this thing called an empath. I started reading oracle cards within a couple of months of being told I could. And since that late part of 2012, it's been a nonstop learning experience. And I got asked back in, I think it was 2013, 2014, to help out a fellow named Dave Scott from Spaced Out Radio. And you can listen to Dave most nights of the week from 9 till midnight, Dave Scott and Spaced Out Radio. Just Google Spaced Out Radio and you'll find that. And I used to do the weekends there, Spaced Out Weekends. Introduced me to a whole whack of really interesting people, including psychics. And I had a little episode called Two Mediums and a Large, and we'd have people call in and get psychic readings, and I thought that was fabulous. And went on and did that for about 4 years, left there in 2017 and got asked to do this podcast. So here I am, doing a podcast now. I took 2018 off, bouncing around all over the place, traveling, doing some interviews through Arizona, down into Tucson, Tombstone, Sedona, experienced UFOs out in Sedona, which we'll talk about. Met some really very, very interesting people. Tom Gimlin, who Patterson Gimlin filmed down at the Kennewick, Washington International Bigfoot Conference with Russell Accord down there. Super, super good people. Travis Walton, Dr. Lynn Kitai, go on and on and on. It's just a bunch of really interesting experiencers of the supernatural, the unexplained, or the paranormal. And I still have more questions. So I'm here doing this podcast. and continuing my looking for the answers that I'll never get until I die. But it's fun. It's the journey itself. It's going after the answers to the questions. Every question I get answered ends up, I get 7 more questions right after it. So you know how it goes, especially in this little hobby that we have here with paranormal, supernatural. My podcast leans a little more to the yes, ghosts exist, as opposed to I want to interview a team of ghost hunters who are going to tell me, this was the sound of a ghost that they got at a building somewhere. Because frankly, I know there's television shows out there. I think there's one that's been on for 10 years and hasn't actually shown a good picture of a ghost yet, where paranormal groups that I belong to have gone out like every second weekend and got a good picture. I don't know what it is about not being able to get them on for television, or whether there's it's foreboding to actually get a picture of a ghost and put it on television in the U.S. But my Lord, we've got pictures of ghosts from every friggin' hotel and old movie theater, and there's ghosts everywhere. So I come into it right off the bat saying, ghosts exist. Now, what are we going to do about it? I get a little choked when, for example, I was Gettysburg, Pennsylvania on a ghost tour, and we went to a house where a young woman was murdered back in the 80s. And, I asked the question, so what are you doing about her spirit? And everyone kind of stopped, and we were all, on the tour, and looked at the people giving the tour, and they just stared at us. I was like, what do you mean? I said, well, what are you going to help her? Oh, well, no, that's just, this is our tour. If we kind of crossed her, we couldn't make money and come here, and, so I get a little tired with that. I'm more about find a ghost, move it on. Find the reason why it's hanging back. Usually the 4 reasons, and we talk about this quite often during these shows, is primarily with the psychics who help cross the lost souls like this. The 4 reasons are their children, and it's stranger danger, or they just don't want to leave mom and dad. The other reason would be they don't know they're dead. And of course, those are a pain in the butt when they do find out they're dead. If you're a wannabe ghost investigator, don't go to somebody's house and say, hey, do you know you're dead? And then you leave and go for a beer, because the poor thing's going to be spinning out of control in the house if it doesn't go home with you. And if you ask that question, I hope it does. But, yeah, don't do that. The other ones are, they still think they have work to do. There's some, I can't leave. So we have in some of the big old asylums, you have all the clients still in there, and you still have the nurses, because the nurses still see the clients, the good nurses anyway, will still see them there. Even in regular hospitals, the nurses are still wandering the halls because the patients are still there that haven't crossed. And it's, they're a little bit harder to take across. You try to get the patients over, and the nurses will follow. The other one, of course, is the ones with religious baggage. They coveted their neighbor's wife, even though I'm not overly religious. What if I'm going to go to hell? Well, yeah, don't worry about it. There isn't a hell, and that's a whole other story we'll get into one other day. Because one of the most common things we do on the show, I shouldn't say the most common, it's what I do with a psychic, Skeeter Wellhouse. You can find her at bluemoonweaver.com. Skeeter and I will cross over your ghosts. And it's for free. She remotely shows up into your house, doesn't do any of the cleaning, but she will move a spirit over on your behalf and get them out of your house for you. It's one of the ones we find quite often is the religious fear of going to hell. Easy to move over. There's certain ways we can convince them that they're going to be okay in crossing over. But those are the types of things we do. We're going to incorporate that into the podcast. The Oracles with James Tyson pops in Tuesday and Thursdays. They get downloaded very early in the morning, so they're up and going. Hopefully they're not more than about an hour and a half long, so at least you could download them and listen to them at your leisure. Spaced out weekend that I used to do was 3 hours long. Gets a little bit hectic from 9 p.m. Pacific till midnight, and it's actually midnight till 3 a.m. Eastern. So, yeah, it's going to be easier to listen to. And again, they're all pre-recorded. If you do have somebody you'd like to hear on the show, give me a shout. You can go to the website theoraclesofjamestyson.com. All that said, if you're not driving, I'll go to the website right now and kind of show you around a bit how to navigate. It's very, very simple. It just starts off, you go to theoraclesofjamestyson.com. That's pretty easy. Now, it opens up the page, podcast, news and events, for hire, about us, contact me, and Patreon donate. We'll start off with podcasts. You click on that. It'll just give you a little brief thing about what we're doing. Plus, it'll show you whatever podcasts are available to download. And it also on that page, what's coming soon, I've got some original art. I have an artist making up some art. I shouldn't say making up some art. It's not just for me. It's what she does. It's an anime thing. It's alien based. So it's very, very interesting. It's all going to be original. We're going to do some draws for it. You can buy it from her. And if you come see us at any of the conferences, we'll probably be selling a few pieces of it. My Amazon store isn't open yet. And yeah, those things are all coming as we morph and as this flower blossoms a bit. Going back to the top, there's the news and events. Now, it gives you on the left the upcoming places I'm going to be. I'm speaking at the Oregon Ghost Conference, UFO Fest in Oregon. I'll be at Contact in the Desert, Scottish UFO and Paranormal Conference, if we get lucky, and if you're with us there. And on the right of that, it's basically Sharon Day, my friend. Her Ghost Hunting Theories is her blog. She is a writer. Oh, my Lord, I don't know how many books she's got written. She's got a ton of books out. She grew up in a house. Actually, the house she, as a small child, was a field hospital for both the North and the South as the battles moved back and forth across the land that her parents' home was on. Before that, there was American Indian battles there, too. She just assumed everybody grew up with a bunch of old Civil War soldiers wandering around the house. And, yeah, it wasn't until later she found out she was the only one that was seeing them in her house. So she just thought people just didn't talk about them. Great human being. Sharon also is out tracking around looking for Bigfoot, and she's on a bit of a hunt right now for giants. Follow Sharon's blog. And again, you can get to that by just clicking on the news and events and read what's coming up on the right-hand side. There's a little thing for hire if you want to hire me as a speaker or babysitter or dog walker. Then you go to the About Us section. There's a little bit about me, which is you don't need to know anymore because I told you it all. And then there's Skeeter Wellhouse, who is our wonderful psychic who will remotely come in and kick ghosts out of your house. Now, she's been working with the paranormal and psychic field professionally for the past 5 years. She's having had an eclectic collection of experience with various paranormal events and phenomena since she was a toddler. She has always felt she was part of that world, not so much this one, but she's a little fringe dweller in between both of them. She only recently begun sharing her insights in order to assist her clients. Now, she is a hypnotherapist. She does, she'll find those dead spots. We were down in a UFO conference in Pasadena, California last year, and people who had lost time in regards to UFO sightings, she will sit down with them and she will go back and draw out the information that from that lost time, present it softly to the person so they're not going to lose much more of their mind when they realize what had happened on that side. So she's also a ET experiencer, also has experienced Bigfoot as a child, thinking that those were just those people who lived on the other side of the hill, which is kind of funny, get her talking about that. She lives just in Washington State. She works out of an office down in Tacoma, Washington. And what's really cool, she has one of her first books coming out, should be out in 2020. And she's also preparing to host Tacoma's first Spirit Pagan Focused Paranormal Conference. She's hoping to create a wider circle of experiencers and believers to gather in this. It's more of an educational environment. And if you want to know a little bit more about Skeeter, you can click on her link on my website where it says About Us, Skeeter Wellhouse, and break it down, or just go straight to her bluemoonweaver.com website and read all about Skeeter there. But she's fascinating. She's, it kind of scares the heck out of me most of the time. Going through again, you get to the contact me side. If you want to hear somebody, have a question, have a guest that you know you want to hear or is interested maybe be coming on, give me a shout. Just write and we'll talk about it. Now, going further on there, it's the Patreon donate page. Now, this is where we kind of change gears when it comes to podcast support. Yes, imagine I'm standing there with my hat in my hand going, please, may I have a penny? Well, no, I want all your, no, I don't want all your money. The thing is, I'm a retired policeman because I got real estate lucky, let's say, out here in British Columbia on the lower left Canadian coast. So no mortgage. I have a pension, so I don't have any bills. Let's see. And my dog eats a lot. No, let's not worry about the dog yet. So what I want to do is I've opened a Patreon. It's only good for 4,500 people, which, you know, you think, oh, that's a ton of people. Well, yeah, it is. 4,500 people is a lot of people. And I'm asking us subscribers to donate $3 a month. Now, you say, well, James, that's a lot of money monthly, isn't it? Yes, it is. But what I want to do, this is it. Once I get to about 10 or 15 people signed up, that's all I need. And believe it or not, I've got like 5 people right now who've been signed up for a year, and I hadn't even started the podcast. So I'd like to shout out to my daughter, Lauren, and her friends. One of the things I'm going to be doing is I'm going to draw a name for a free psychic reading every month. Someone's going to get a psychic reading. Every month, someone is also getting a free past life regression. At 2,222 patrons giving or volunteering or donating, or however you want to put it, $3 a month, I will be drawing a name, and this is, and for the IRS listening, this isn't a gift. These people will come with me, 2 people, and I will pick up the airfare, accommodations, and car rental, and we will go, and I always want to use Gettysburg as an example. So if you live in LA and I live in Vancouver, or you live in Winnipeg, and wherever you live, and you've never been on a ghost tour, I will bring you down with me to Gettysburg, and we will not only go on ghost tours, we will go out on investigations, and I will interview you on what you think of the tours, and you and I will go out and we will interview other people who maybe own some of the haunted property in the area, and we'll make a couple of episodes out of it. So what we'll do is you end up getting out of the house, away from the kids, and come with me. Unfortunately, you're stuck with me. Hey, you know, you'll definitely, you and whoever you're bringing is going to have your own accommodation, but yeah, we'll just go do some ghost stuff. If you were more into UFOs, ufology, then what I'll do is I'll pick a UFO venue, whether we're going to go down to Sedona, Arizona, meet Melinda Leslie, do the UFO tour, and if you've never seen UFOs coming and going from a portal pointed out to her by NASA, yeah, we're going to do that. You're going to come out of there seeing, if you thought, well, you know, I wonder if they're real. Yeah, they're real. You'll come out of there going, okay, that was 6 or 7 in formation that came out of a black spot in space, and 3 of them turned around and took off sideways at a high speed. Yeah, these aren't man-made. But that's the trips that I'm going to give. If I draw your name and you're in London, England, I'll send you to Glasgow. It's not a punishment, honest, maybe. And we'll go do a ghost tour there. Vice versa, if you're in, let's say, Perth in Australia, I will send you to a UFO conference outside of Sydney. So it's relevant. So if you are donating and you are from overseas, don't worry about it. If I draw your name, that's the focus of the trip. It's going to be close to you. Now, at 4,500 people, that's the cap. Nobody else is allowed in. I draw once a month out of that group, and get your passport ready, because I tell you, you might be going to Gettysburg, but that's only if you live in London, England, or Sydney, Australia, or somewhere in South Africa. You are going to be bouncing outside of the country. So hopefully you can travel. Hopefully you've got a passport. And we're going to be doing the same thing. I will be interviewing you about the trip. We will go out and dig around, go on paranormal tours. We will go to conferences, and it's basically I'm just hiring you to come with me to be a guest. So it's not like you win anything, because that would be taxable income for you, wouldn't it? No, you're just going to you're going to be the unlucky persons that I end up asking to come along with me and take the red eye from, I don't know, if you happen to live in Newark, you're going to go to a nice little place in Scotland or London or Ireland, maybe France, maybe we'll bounce over to Australia. Lots of tours. I think my friend, the X-Man, John D'Souza, I think he was in was it Portugal or Spain last year? He was at a UFO conference there, and he said it was really good. I'll have to talk to John about that. We may end up going to a place, get one of these guys to tag along with us, which would be kind of cool. And, so that's the kind of thing I want to do. So that is where the Patreon money goes. It basically gets tossed back. Imagine the odds like 1 out of 4,500. Yeah, not everybody's going to go, but over time, a good chunk of people are going to be out and about. And if for some reason we get a big block of money, it won't be just drawing for 1 or 2 names. I might draw for 4 or 5 names. We may all go to Contact in the Desert. Oh yeah, if we go to conferences like that, it includes the VIP pass. So you get in and you get to do all the stuff that usually is a pain in the butt to afford, and you get to bypass a lot of the big crowds, and we can maybe do some interviews in the back when nobody's looking. We'll go out and snoop around and grab some of the guests there and do some interviews. So that's the plan. The Patreon thing is kind of cool. I've got some really good feedback on it now, so if you wouldn't mind, that would be great. The quicker we can get that number up, the better, and we can get out and we can do some traveling. Yes, do I want to go do some traveling around to these hot spots? Do I want to go bug David Ullman again and maybe take you to his house and drive him nuts? If you know David, it's easy to drive him crazy. So it's like all you do is touch some of the stuff that he doesn't want you to touch, and I shouldn't say that. It's not nice to tease him, but what is nice though is he's really, really good at cooking barbecue. So that's the number one reason we go to David's house. That and to watch what the ghosts do there, and very good little neighborhood he's in. Dr. Phil's house is at the corner, so if you are feeling a little weird out by Dave's house, you can just walk up the street and go see Phil. Just don't tell him you know me. What else? No, that's the Patreon thing. Again, that's giving it back. Let's see how many people we can get in there. Again, it's a maximum 4,500. At 2,222 people, we start pulling for the trips. And until then, we're just giving away the psychic readings and past life regressions monthly. Those may increase to weekly or bi-weekly, depending on how quickly we get people to sign up. We may just end up pulling names really quick. Now, if I pull your name for a psychic reading, it goes back in for the trip. Don't worry about it. Mind you, if I pull your name for the trip to go to Europe, yeah, I'm probably going to give you a 3-month timeout before I put your name back in the basket. Because I know some of you, you're very, very lucky, and you may end up pumping these trips out too often. But let's see if we can get your air miles up. Let's get this going. We also have a number of video interviews that, I shouldn't say video, I haven't done video for years, but I've traveled around and I've filmed interviews. Now, that's the other advantage to being a Patreon or a patron and a supporter. You just don't get the audio on the interviews. You will get the actual filmed interview with the little special reels of pieces of like the documentary, award-winning documentary, The Phoenix Lights, from Dr. Lynn Kitai, about that parade of UFOs down central, north central, and then out to the bottom of Arizona about 22 years ago. Amazing documentary. Same with a couple of little bits and pieces. I think Lyle, let's see, what did Lyle do? Lyle Blackburn gave us a little bit of the Boggy Creek Monster. We may end up throwing that into his interview too, which was kind of cool. Lyle's a cool guy, and if you ever get a chance to see Lyle Blackburn somewhere, definitely take it in. He's doing a lot of his own film work right now and pumping that off. Also, you get to see me hosting paranormal documentaries, little YouTube snippets. You know what? I think we're going to get those. You're going to see them whether you're Patreon or not, because my friend Jason Mills Studios, he has hired me. I do a lot of his documentaries for him as a host, and he's got some really spooky ones. He got some really spooky movies too. Yeah, he's got the Clown Motel, which I'm not in because I wouldn't, because there's clowns. That would be right up there with the Mannequin Doll Motel. Why not Clown Dolls? The Clown Doll Motel. Nope, won't do there. Yeah, that's going to be awkward. At the bottom of my website, down on the bottom right, quick links, there's Mills Picture Studios, as Jason Mills was filming, Sharon Day's blog, and SoCan Music. Now, SoCan is something that I've applied for and I'm a member of. SoCan, basically what it does is any music that I play in the background, if I'm playing Led Zeppelin, if I'm playing any band's music in the background here, I write down how many seconds I played it on each of these episodes, and at the end of the year, I send it in. Actually, I send them in a little quicker than normal. I send them in every couple of months, and then I actually get billed for the amount of music that I do play. So I'm not stealing anybody's music. It's basically I'm paying for it. And it was kind of funny. That was the main reason I wanted a Patreon account, so it could help me pay for whatever music I was going to be using for my show. There are sometimes I will be supporting some local musicians. If you've got a local band that you'd like to see portrayed or put up here, I may put a link just to new, call it new music. And it's got nothing to do with the paranormal, and most of the times. Nothing to do with the paranormal or supernatural, but it's kind of cool music, and I'll put a little link on there. One of the bands that I did have showing interest, actually, the fellow who writes the music channels it, which is interesting. You know, when you sit down and I put a pen to a piece of paper and look down at it a few minutes later, and you've got a bunch of music written down and you have no conscious memory of it. Yeah, that's kind of cool. So we're going to play bits and pieces from bands like that. You'll know. I'll give you a description of the band and how the music came to be written. It's going to be kind of cool. So that's the reason I use SoCan. It's basically just licensing music. And again, it's all about giving back to the artists. It's all about giving back to you, the people who are listening to the show. And it's something I want to do. It's if I was going to be listening to a podcast, that's what I would like to hear my money goes to, helping local artists and also giving back to the listener themselves. That's it. And if you know anybody else out there that may like supernatural podcasts, like some good paranormal stuff, some spooky stuff, give them a shout. Send them a copy of my website, theoracleswithjamestyson.com. Tell them to drop by. And if they like what they see, and if they want to donate and get on the list in the event they can pull their name and end up going on a trip, that would be great too. Also, if you're shut in at home, like I know that places like Gettysburg, a lot of the things they do there are wheelchair accessible. So if you're a shut in and you're thinking, well, I'm in a wheelchair, I can never, if I do win a trip, what am I going to do? Well, that's why you have another ticket, so to bring somebody with you, and we'll make sure the entire trip is based around mobility and your ability to see the things you want to see, whether it's at a UFO conference or if it's a actual paranormal investigation. It's going to be built around you. You're not tagging along. I'm the one tagging along, interviewing you while you're having fun. So that's the cool part. So let's get out there together and get this stuff done. And that's the fun part. I think I should wrap it up. That's about 35 minutes of me talking about myself, which is about, 45 minutes too long. I want to thank you for hanging out with us anyway. I want you to give it a thought about the Patreon, pass it on to your friends if it's something that you might be interested in. If not, just listen, hang out, see what kind of stuff that we have on the show. It may tickle your fancy. And until then, I can hear this music off in the background. It's like Mountie music, which means it's about time for me to go. And then eventually ride off into the sunset myself. Even though I don't know how to ride a horse. I know. All right, everybody. See you Thursday.
This is our last goodbye. Young hearts will stop. Torn souls set free. All that we have is now. If this is what you want, then come to me.
All right, that's it. Let's roll. And hey! Let's be careful out there.
Far over the snow, what are those voices? They sing as they go, what are those voices? Look up for the mountain. Because somebody hide, somebody better hide on through the hill, like a pack of angry wolves on the trail. We are after you, dead or alive. We are out to get you, dead or alive. And forget yourself. If you're the one, better run away. Son, you are done. Throw your gun away. Here come the Mounties to get the man.